In a lively city where dreams often collided with the harsh realities of life, there lived a 16-year-old boy named Marcus. He was smart, ambitious, and full of energy, always looking for ways to make something of himself. Marcus shared a small but cozy apartment with his mother, Evelyn. Though they didn't have much, their bond was strong, and Marcus admired how hard his mom worked to provide for them. She always encouraged him to dream big, telling him that no goal was too far out of reach if he stayed focused. Marcus had a special love for cars. Not just any cars, luxury ones. The sleek designs, powerful engines, and shiny exteriors fascinated him. To him, these vehicles weren't just machines. They represented success, freedom, and possibility. On weekends, when he wasn't studying or helping around the house, Marcus spent hours sketching car designs in his notebook. Each drawing was more detailed than the last, showing off his creativity and vision. Sometimes, late at night, he'd imagine himself behind the wheel of one of those beautiful cars, cruising down the highway toward a brighter future. To help save money for college, Marcus worked part-time at a local cafe. It wasn't glamorous, but he enjoyed interacting with customers and learning the value of hard work. Every paycheck felt like a step closer to achieving his dreams. Even though he loved what he did, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he wanted more from life. He believed that someday, somehow, he'd find a way to turn his passion for cars into a career. One sunny Saturday afternoon, while serving coffee to a group of well-dressed businessmen, Marcus overheard them talking about Prestige Motors, an upscale car dealership downtown. They described it as a paradise for car enthusiasts, filled with the latest models of Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and Rolls-Royces. Intrigued, Marcus decided to visit the dealership, not to buy anything, of course, but simply to see the cars up close. He figured it would be fun to explore such a fancy place, even if it was just for a few minutes. After finishing his shift at the cafe, Marcus changed into his favorite hoodie and jeans, grabbed his trusty notebook, and headed downtown. As he walked, excitement bubbled inside him. This was his chance to get inspired, maybe even jot down some ideas for new car designs. When he arrived at Prestige Motors, he paused outside the gleaming glass doors, taking in the sight of the luxurious showroom. For a moment, he hesitated, wondering if he really belonged there. But curiosity got the better of him, and he stepped inside. The moment Marcus entered, he felt like he stepped into another world. The air smelled faintly of leather and polish, and soft jazz music played in the background. Rows of dazzling cars sparkled under bright lights, each one more impressive than the last. Marcus wandered through the showroom, his eyes wide with wonder. He stopped near a red Ferrari, running his fingers lightly along its smooth surface. Then he moved to a silver Lamborghini, imagining how fast it could go. For a brief moment, he forgot about everything else and let himself dream. But not everyone in the dealership shared Marcus's enthusiasm. A salesperson in a sharp suit watched him from across the room, sizing him up. To the man, Marcus looked out of place, too young, too casually dressed, and too eager. Instead of welcoming him, the salesperson approached with a frown, ready to send him on his way. Marcus didn't realize it yet, but this innocent trip to admire cars was about to take a turn he'd never forget. As Marcus wandered through the showroom, his excitement grew with every step. He couldn't believe how close he was to these incredible machines, cars that most people only saw in magazines or on TV. Each vehicle seemed to tell a story of speed, luxury, and innovation. Marcus paused near a sleek black Rolls-Royce, marveling at its intricate details. The chrome accents gleamed under the lights, and the leather seats looked so smooth they almost invited him to sit down. Forgetting where he was for a moment, Marcus leaned closer, imagining what it would feel like to drive such a masterpiece. That's when he noticed someone approaching him. It was one of the salespeople, a man in his 30s wearing an expensive suit and a forced smile. At first, Marcus thought the man might be coming over to answer questions or share some interesting facts about the cars. But as the man drew nearer, His expression changed. His smile faded, replaced by a look of irritation. Marcus instinctively straightened up, suddenly feeling self-conscious about his hoodie and jeans. "Can I help you?" the man asked, his tone clipped and cold. Marcus nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah, I'm just looking around. These cars are amazing." The man raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. "This isn't really your kind of place, kid," he said dismissively. "These cars cost more than most people make in 10 years. You're wasting your time here." Marcus felt his cheeks burn with embarrassment. He opened his mouth to respond, but found himself at a loss for words. How could he explain that he wasn't there to buy anything? That he simply wanted to admire the craftsmanship and draw inspiration for his sketches? Before he could say anything, the man cut him off again. "Look, we don't need kids hanging around here causing trouble," the man continued, his voice louder now. A few nearby customers turned their heads, glancing curiously at the scene unfolding before them. "Why don't you go somewhere else?" Marcus clenched his fists, trying to hold back the anger bubbling inside him. He hadn't done anything wrong. He hadn't touched any of the cars or caused any disturbances. All he'd done was walk in and look around, something anyone should be allowed to do. Yet here he was being treated like he didn't belong, like he wasn't worthy of even standing in the same room as those cars. For a brief second, Marcus considered arguing back. He wanted to tell the man that judging someone based on how they dressed wasn't fair, but then he remembered his mother's advice. Pick your battles wisely. There was no point in making a scene or escalating things further. With a heavy heart, Marcus took a deep breath and walked toward the exit. As he pushed open the glass doors and stepped outside, he felt a mix of emotions: anger, sadness, and frustration swirling inside him. Once outside, Marcus stopped for a moment, letting the cool breeze calm him down. He looked back at the dealership, noticing how grand and intimidating it seemed from the outside. The shiny windows reflected the sunlight, almost mocking him. For the first time in his life, Marcus truly understood what it meant to feel unwelcome because of who people assumed he was. It was a bitter pill to swallow, especially since all he had wanted was to dream a little bigger. Still, Marcus refused to let the experience break his spirit. If anything, it fueled his determination even more. Someday, he vowed silently, he would prove everyone wrong. He would show the world, and maybe even that rude salesperson, that he was capable of achieving greatness, no matter where he came from or what he wore. Little did he know, this painful encounter was just the beginning of a journey that would change not only his life, but also the lives of many others. Months passed, and Marcus poured all his energy into developing the app he and Evelyn had envisioned. Late nights became a routine for him as he worked tirelessly on perfecting every detail. With his mother's guidance and connections, Marcus assembled a team of talented designers, coders, and mentors who shared his passion for creating opportunities for underrepresented communities. The app, which they named Rise, was designed to be more than just a networking platform. It was a movement. Rise allowed young entrepreneurs from diverse backgrounds to showcase their ideas, connect with experienced mentors, and pitch to investors willing to take a chance on fresh talent. What set it apart from other platforms was its focus on inclusivity. It included resources like free workshops, funding opportunities, and tools to help users navigate challenges unique to marginalized groups. Evelyn funded the initial launch, ensuring that no user would face financial barriers to accessing the app's features. When Resup officially went live, it quickly gained traction. Social media buzzed with stories of young innovators finding support through the platform. One user, a 19-year-old girl from a low-income neighborhood, used Resup to secure funding for her eco-friendly fashion line. Another, a college dropout turned tech enthusiast, landed an internship with a major company after connecting with a mentor through the app. These success stories inspired others to join, turning Resup into a thriving community of dreamers and doers. Meanwhile, Evelyn continued using her influence to push for broader change. She partnered with several high-profile organizations to promote diversity in industries traditionally dominated by privilege, including automotive sales. Together, they launched initiatives aimed at training employees to recognize unconscious bias and fostering inclusive environments. Prestige Motors itself underwent a transformation, implementing stricter policies against discrimination and hosting events to encourage minority participation in the car buying experience. Marcus also took steps to confront his own past. He returned to the dealership, not out of anger, but to speak at a workshop organized by Evelyn's initiative. Standing in front of a room full of salespeople, he shared his story openly, explaining how being judged based on appearances had affected him. "It's not about cars or money," he said earnestly. "It's about treating people with respect, no matter who they are or where they come from. You never know. You might meet someone who could change your perspective." The audience listened intently, many visibly moved by his words. Afterward, several employees approached him, thanking him for sharing his experience and vowing to do better. For Marcus, it was a powerful moment of closure. He realized that while pain could linger, it could also fuel growth, and sometimes even reconciliation. As Recep grew, so did Marcus's confidence. He began speaking at conferences and events, advocating for equality and innovation. His speeches resonated with audiences, especially young people who saw themselves in him. Evelyn watched proudly from the sidelines, knowing she had raised not just a son but a leader capable of inspiring real change. Together, mother and son proved that setbacks could become stepping stones if approached with resilience and purpose. They weren't just building businesses or apps, they were dismantling barriers and rewriting the rules of success. And though their journey was far from over, they knew they were making the difference, one connection, one idea, and one opportunity at a time. This part highlights Marcus's growth as a leader and innovator, while showcasing Evelyn's role in amplifying efforts for systemic change. It sets the stage for the final chapter, where their impact reaches new heights. When Marcus got home that evening, he found his mother, Evelyn, in the small but cozy kitchen. She was stirring a pot of soup on the stove, humming softly to herself. The apartment smelled warm and inviting, filled with the comforting aroma of herbs and spices. Marcus hesitated for a moment before stepping inside, unsure how to bring up what had happened at the dealership. Part of him didn't want to upset her, but another part needed to share the story, to release the frustration that still lingered inside. Evelyn turned when she heard him close the door. Her face lit up with a smile as always, though it softened slightly when she noticed the look on his face. "Hey, sweetheart," she said warmly. "How was your day?" Marcus shrugged, trying to act casual as he set his notebook down on the dining table. "It was okay," he muttered, avoiding her gaze. But Evelyn knew her son too well. She could tell something was bothering him. "Okay doesn't sound like great," she teased gently, turning off the stove and wiping her hands on a towel. "Come on, sit down. Tell me what's going on." Reluctantly, Marcus pulled out a chair and sat across from her. For a few seconds, he stared at the wooden surface of the table, gathering his thoughts. Then, in a rush, he began recounting everything. The awe-inspiring cars, the rude salesperson, and the humiliating way he'd been treated. As he spoke, his voice grew louder, betraying the hurt and anger he'd been holding back all afternoon. Evelyn listened intently, her expression unreadable. She didn't interrupt or offer reassurances right away. Instead, she let him finish, nodding occasionally to show she understood. When Marcus finally fell silent, slumping back in his chair, Evelyn reached over and placed a hand on his arm. "I'm sorry you had to go through that," she said softly. Her tone was calm, but there was a flicker of something else in her eyes, something Marcus couldn't quite place. It looked almost like determination. What Marcus didn't know, and what Evelyn had kept hidden all these years, was that she wasn't just another hard-working single mom struggling to make ends meet. In truth, Evelyn Hartley was one of the wealthiest individuals in the country. Years ago, she had built a fortune by founding a groundbreaking tech startup, which she later sold for billions. But instead of flaunting her wealth, Evelyn chose to live modestly, wanting to give Marcus a grounded upbringing free from the pressures of privilege. As Marcus talked about his experience, Evelyn felt a surge of emotions: anger at how her son had been treated, guilt for not preparing him for moments like this, and resolve to ensure such injustice wouldn't happen again. She realized it was time to reveal the truth, not just about who she was, but about the power they held to create change. "Marcus," she began, leaning forward slightly, "there's something I need to tell you, something I should have told you a long time ago." Her voice was steady, but Marcus could hear the weight behind her words. He looked at her curiously, sensing that whatever she was about to say was important. Evelyn took a deep breath and continued. "I've worked very hard to give us a good life, but I haven't always been honest with you about certain things. You see, Mom has done well for herself, better than you might think. And tomorrow, we're going to do something about what happened today." Marcus blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" he asked cautiously. Evelyn smiled faintly, her eyes glinting with purpose. "You'll see," she replied. "But trust me, no one will ever treat you, or anyone else, like that again if I have anything to say about it." For the rest of the night, Marcus couldn't stop thinking about what his mother had said. Who was she really? And what exactly did she have planned? Whatever it was, one thing was clear: tomorrow would be unlike any other day. Later that evening, Evelyn and Marcus sat together on the couch in their cozy living room. The apartment felt quieter than usual, but the energy between them was electric. Marcus still couldn't wrap his head around everything he'd learned about his mother, or the events of the day. For years, he had thought of her as just a hard-working single mom who juggled bills and long hours to provide for him. Now, he realized she was so much more: a powerful, influential woman who could command respect with a single word. "Mom," Marcus began hesitantly, breaking the silence. "Why didn't you ever tell me about, being rich?" Evelyn sighed softly, setting aside the cup of tea she'd been sipping. She turned to face him, her expression thoughtful. "It's not something I wanted to keep from you forever," she admitted. "But when you were younger, I didn't want money to define your life, or mine. Wealth can open doors, but it can also close them if people see you differently because of it. I wanted you to grow up knowing the value of hard work, kindness, and humility." Marcus nodded slowly, absorbing her words. He understood what she meant, even though it was hard to process. Still, there was one question lingering in his mind. "So why are you telling me now?" Evelyn smiled faintly, reaching over to pat his hand. "Because today showed me that the world isn't always fair, and sometimes we need tools to fight back. Money isn't just about luxury or comfort. It's a resource. When used wisely, it can create opportunities, challenge injustice, and make a difference. I kept my wealth hidden to give you a grounded start. But now it's time for you to understand its potential, for yourself and others." Her words sparked something in Marcus. He thought back to the humiliation he'd felt at the dealership, the way the salesperson had dismissed him without a second thought. It wasn't just about him. It was about all the other kids, teenagers, and adults who might face similar treatment because of stereotypes or assumptions. That realization ignited a fire inside him, a desire to use his talents and resources to change things. "What if we did something bigger?" Marcus suggested suddenly, his voice tinged with excitement. "Like, what if we helped people like me, people who get judged before anyone even gives them a chance?" Evelyn raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What do you have in mind?" "Well," Marcus hesitated, gathering his thoughts. "I've been working on this idea for an app. It's kind of like a platform where young entrepreneurs from underrepresented communities can connect with mentors and investors. People who actually believe in them instead of shutting them down right away. If we built it together, maybe we could help others avoid the same struggles I went through." Evelyn's eyes lit up with pride. She had always known her son was smart and creative, but hearing him articulate such a meaningful vision filled her with hope. "That's a wonderful idea, Marcus," she said warmly. "Let's make it happen." Over the next few weeks, Evelyn threw her full support behind Marcus's project. She introduced him to tech experts, business leaders, and community activists who could guide him through the development process. Together, they refined the concept, adding features that would ensure inclusivity and accessibility. Meanwhile, Evelyn used her influence to partner with organizations focused on diversity and equality, amplifying their efforts to combat systemic racism in industries like automotive sales. Through these experiences, Marcus began to see wealth not as a symbol of success, but as a tool for empowerment. And Evelyn, watching her son blossom into a compassionate leader, felt a deep sense of fulfillment. They weren't just rebuilding trust after yesterday's pain. They were laying the foundation for a brighter future, one where everyone had a fair shot at achieving their dreams. Years later, Marcus stood on a stage in front of hundreds of people, his heart pounding with excitement and pride. The grand opening of the Rise Up Community Center was underway, and the room buzzed with energy. Located in the heart of the city, the center was designed to be a hub for young innovators, entrepreneurs, and dreamers from all walks of life. It featured state-of-the-art facilities, including co-working spaces, tech labs, and classrooms where workshops were held daily. But more than its physical structure, the center represented hope, a place where anyone could come to learn, grow, and turn their ideas into reality. Evelyn sat in the front row, her eyes glistening with tears as she watched her son address the crowd. Gone was the shy teenager who had once been dismissed at a car dealership. In his place stood a confident young man, dressed in a sharp suit, speaking with passion about the importance of equality, opportunity, and perseverance. "When I was 16, Marcus began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. I walked into a car dealership just to look around. Instead of being welcomed, I was told I didn't belong there. That moment hurt, but it also taught me something valuable. It showed me that the world isn't always fair, and sometimes people are judged not by what they can do, but by how they look or where they come from." He paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. "But today, we're proving that those judgments don't define us. This community center is proof that when we work together, we can create opportunities for everyone, no matter their background, race, gender, or circumstances. We're not just building businesses here, we're building futures." The audience erupted into applause, many nodding in agreement. Among the attendees were some of the very users of Rise Up, now successful entrepreneurs themselves, who had traveled from across the country to celebrate this milestone. There was the girl who had launched her eco-friendly fashion line, now running a thriving international brand. And the college dropout turned coder, who now led a team of developers creating apps to solve real-world problems. Each of them carried a piece of Marcus's vision within them, proving that small actions could spark monumental change. After his speech, Evelyn joined Marcus on stage, wrapping him in a warm hug. "You've done something incredible, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm so proud of you." Marcus smiled, pulling back to look at her. "We did this together, Mom. None of this would have been possible without you." As the event continued, speeches gave way to tours of the facility. Visitors marveled at the modern design and thoughtful amenities, from the mural-covered walls celebrating diversity to the library stocked with books donated by authors worldwide. In one corner, kids participated in a robotics workshop, their laughter echoing through the space. In another, adults brainstormed startup ideas during a networking session. Everywhere you looked, there was evidence of collaboration and possibility. Later that evening, as the crowd began to disperse, Marcus and Evelyn stood outside the center, watching the lights illuminate the building against the night sky. "Do you remember that day at the dealership?" Marcus asked softly, glancing at his mother. "I'll never forget it," Evelyn replied, smiling. "It wasn't just a turning point for you, it was one for me too. It reminded me why I worked so hard to build what I have." to help people like you break barriers and chase dreams bigger than anyone thought possible. Marcus nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. What started as a painful experience had transformed into something extraordinary, a legacy of empowerment and change. Together, he and Evelyn had proven that resilience, combined with purpose, could rewrite stories and reshape lives. As they walked back to their car, Marcus glanced over his shoulder one last time at the glowing building. Somewhere inside, a young person was sketching an idea, coding a program, or pitching a business plan. And somewhere out there, another teenager might walk into a dealership or any place that seemed out of reach and find the courage to keep dreaming, knowing they weren't alone. Their journey wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. And it was only the beginning. The manager led Evelyn and Marcus to a small office at the back of the dealership, his steps hurried and nervous. Along the way, employees shot curious glances at Evelyn, clearly sensing that something significant was unfolding. The air felt tense, charged with anticipation. When they reached the office, the manager gestured for them to sit, though Evelyn remained standing, her posture straight and commanding. She had no intention of sitting down, not until she got answers. "Please bring the salesperson who spoke to my son yesterday," Evelyn instructed, her tone leaving no room for argument. The manager nodded quickly and scurried out of the room, returning moments later with the same man who had dismissed Marcus so rudely. The salesperson froze in the doorway when he saw Evelyn, his eyes darting between her confident stance and the Rolls-Royce Phantom parked prominently outside the showroom window. "Do you recognize this young man?" Evelyn asked, gesturing toward Marcus, who stood quietly beside her. Her voice was calm but carried an edge that made the salesperson shift uncomfortably. Yes, I do," the man stammered, avoiding eye contact. I thought he was just loitering. Kids sometimes come in here to mess around, and what gave you the impression that my son was there to mess around?" Evelyn interrupted, her words cutting through his weak explanation like a knife. Was it his clothes, his age, or perhaps the color of his skin? The room fell silent. The salesperson's face turned pale as he realized the gravity of Evelyn's accusation. He opened his mouth to respond but couldn't find the words. Instead, he looked helplessly at the manager, who was equally uneasy. Evelyn took a step closer, her presence dominating the space. "Let me make one thing very clear," she said, her voice steady but firm. "You judged my son based on superficial assumptions instead of treating him with basic respect. That kind of behavior isn't just wrong. It's bad business. You lost a potential customer before even giving him a chance." The salesperson swallowed hard, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. "Ma'am, I'm sorry," he finally managed to say. "I didn't mean any harm. It was a mistake." "A mistake," Evelyn repeated, arching an eyebrow. "A mistake is spilling coffee or forgetting someone's name. Treating another human being as if they don't belong because of how they look is prejudice, and it has consequences." She paused, letting her words sink in. Then, turning to the manager, she added, "This isn't just about one employee making a poor decision. It's about your dealership's culture. If this kind of attitude exists here, it likely extends beyond this incident. How many other customers have been treated unfairly without anyone holding you accountable?" The manager fidgeted nervously, adjusting his tie as he struggled to respond. "We'll address this immediately, Ms. Hartley," Evelyn supplied, her expression unyielding. Evelyn Hartley. Recognition flickered in the manager's eyes. He had heard the name before. Everyone in the business world knew who Evelyn Hartley was. Her reputation as a tech billionaire and philanthropist preceded her, and now he understood why she carried herself with such authority. "We'll implement sensitivity training for all staff members," the manager promised hastily, "and we'll ensure this doesn't happen again. Please, give us another chance." Evelyn studied him carefully, weighing his sincerity. Finally, she nodded. "Very well," she said. "But actions speak louder than words. I expect to see real change, not just empty promises. With that, she turned to leave, signaling that the meeting was over. As they walked back toward the Rolls-Royce, Marcus glanced up at his mother, admiration shining in his eyes. "Mom, that was incredible," he said softly. "I've never seen anyone stand up like that." Evelyn smiled faintly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes, people need to be reminded of their responsibility to treat others fairly," she replied. "And sometimes, we need to remind ourselves of our own power to create change." With that, they climbed into the car, leaving behind a dealership filled with stunned employees and a shaken salesperson who would never forget the lesson he'd learned that day. The next morning, Evelyn woke up earlier than usual. The sun had barely risen, casting a soft golden glow through the curtains of their modest apartment. She moved quietly, careful not to disturb Marcus, who was still asleep in his room. But her mind was anything but calm. It raced with thoughts of what she needed to do today, how she would confront the injustice her son had faced and ensure that such prejudice wouldn't happen again. After getting ready, Evelyn picked up her phone and dialed a number she hadn't used in years. On the other end, her trusted assistant answered promptly. "Good morning, Miss Hartley," the voice said warmly, clearly surprised to hear from her after so long. "Morning," Evelyn replied, her tone firm yet composed. "I need you to prepare the Rolls-Royce Phantom for me. Have it delivered to Prestige Motors downtown by noon." There was a brief pause on the line before the assistant responded. "Of course, ma'am." "Anything else?" "No, that will be all for now," Evelyn said, ending the call without further explanation. She didn't need to justify her actions to anyone, not even those closest to her. This wasn't about revenge or showing off. It was about making a statement and standing up for what was right. By mid-morning, Evelyn stood in front of the full-length mirror in her bedroom, adjusting the cuffs of her tailored navy blue suit. She looked every bit the powerful businesswoman she truly was, confident, poised, and unapologetic. For years, she had kept this side of herself hidden, choosing instead to live simply and focus on raising Marcus. But today, she embraced her identity fully, knowing it could serve a greater purpose. When Marcus finally emerged from his room, rubbing his eyes sleepily, he stopped short at the sight of his mother. "Whoa, Mom, what's going on?" he asked, wide-eyed. Evelyn turned to face him, her lips curling into a small smile. "We're going somewhere important," she said simply. "Get dressed. We leave in 10 minutes." Confused but intrigued, Marcus quickly changed into his best clothes, a pair of slacks and a button-up shirt, and followed his mother downstairs. Outside, a sleek black Rolls-Royce Phantom awaited them, its polished surface gleaming under the sunlight. A uniformed chauffeur stood beside the car, opening the door for Evelyn and Marcus as they approached. Marcus gawked at the vehicle, stunned. "Mom, is this yours?" he stammered, unable to believe what he was seeing. "It is," Evelyn confirmed calmly, sliding gracefully into the back seat. "And today, we're using it to send a message." The ride to Prestige Motors was quiet but charged with anticipation. Marcus watched the city streets blur past the tinted windows, his mind racing with questions. Who exactly was his mother? Why had she never told him about this part of her life? And what kind of message did she plan to deliver? When they arrived at the dealership, Evelyn stepped out of the car with undeniable poise. Heads turned instantly. Customers, employees, and passers-by alike couldn't help but stare at the luxurious vehicle and the elegant woman stepping out of it. Evelyn ignored the attention, striding confidently toward the entrance with Marcus close behind. Inside, the atmosphere shifted immediately. Employees scrambled to greet her, sensing that she was someone important. Evelyn didn't waste time with pleasantries. She walked straight to the reception desk and requested to speak with the manager. When the flustered manager appeared moments later, Evelyn introduced herself, not as Evelyn Hartley, the tech billionaire, but simply as Marcus's mother. "I'm here to discuss something that happened yesterday," she began, her voice calm but commanding. "My son visited your dealership and was treated poorly based on assumptions about his appearance. I'd like to understand why that happened and how you plan to prevent it from happening again. The manager blinked, clearly caught off guard. He glanced nervously at Marcus, then back at Evelyn, fumbling for words. Ma'am, I assure you, this must be a misunderstanding. We pride ourselves on excellent customer service. Evelyn raised a hand to cut him off. Save the excuses, she said firmly. Actions speak louder than words. Let's start by speaking with the person responsible. As the manager led them deeper into the showroom, Evelyn felt a surge of satisfaction. Today wasn't just about confronting one rude salesperson. It was about challenging the system that allowed such behavior to exist. And she intended to make sure everyone involved understood the stakes.